Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of To Whom It May Concern. I'm your host Malak, here with my co-host Inara, Khoel, and Mariam.
Hey.
So, ladies, we're kind of halfway done with the summer. What are you guys up to? What are you doing? How are you keeping busy?
It's been a busy week for me because on Monday of last week, I got my wisdom teeth extracted. Slightly.
Oh, yeah.
My mouth might stop talking in the middle of this. My ibuprofen wear off. So that was an interesting experience.
If you're arguing with one of us, no one's gonna complain that your mouth just stopped moving.
Yeah, she agreed with me. That's what I'm gonna say.
Or if you start noticing me holding my jaw, it's because I'm in pain. But alhamdulillah, the swelling lessened, and it's been good eating soft food.
I've seen the YouTube videos of wisdom teeth extractions, and they're so nasty.
Yeah, mine had to be surgically removed. So they literally went in with the drill, had to open up my gums and pull them out. And I was fine because you just felt pressure. I was awake, just numbed my mouth, and I made sure my eyes were closed because the last thing I want to see is needles and a bunch of other tools in my mouth, right? And alhamdulillah, I pulled through. I was really surprised because I thought I was gonna pass out. But he's like, "You're doing great. Keep going," and all of that.
In Inara style fashion, when she was telling us that she was gonna go get her wisdom teeth removed, she's like, "You guys pray for me. I'm going in for surgery." I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna see you guys. I'm doing surgery. I was a bit dramatic. I know it sounds like it's not a big deal, but I promise, YouTube it and see what they actually do to remove an impacted wisdom tooth, and it's a legit surgery. So I wasn't exaggerating. I made Khoila watch it.
Okay, it's not a legit surgery.
They literally cut through your bone to get it out. It's so ew, and blood everywhere. Yeah, I can't believe that was me. Thank God I did the surgery, not before. I refused to watch it before.
On another note, remember how I wanted to do my 24-hour readathon? And I've been planning this since before Ramadan. So yesterday, I was like, I'm going to do it. And I convinced two of my other cousins to do it with me because, better together. We'll actually keep ourselves accountable. We made it till 2 a.m. But we did no prep time whatsoever. We didn't prepare ourselves by sleeping that day. We just randomly were like, let's do it. We could do it. We picked out our books, everything. We were so pumped. And then 2 o'clock and we were like, I'm so tired.
I was so excited for Mariam because she's been telling us how badly she wanted to do this readathon, right? And of course, I'm like, yes, Mariam, you're going to do great. Do it. I'm all for it. So at 1 o'clock, I called Mariam and she's like, I'm doing the readathon. I'm like, okay, awesome. I'll check in with you because I'm going to be staying up all night doing my work hours, right? I'm like, I was doing work. So I was like, Mariam, I'll call you in the middle of the night, 4 a.m. and check in on you. I called Mariam around 4 a.m. and she's knocked out. She's like, yeah, Nara, nothing's worth losing your sleep. She's like, forget this. It was so funny. And I was like, how is Mecca and Yasmin doing? They didn't.
On another note, if it was any other day that I wasn't planning this, I would probably stay up till 4 a.m. anyway. But because I had to do something, I wanted to go to sleep.
Yes, Mariam, I start the readathon.
We wanted to do from midnight to midnight. And the 24-hour reading challenge, if any of you guys want to do it, because it's kind of fun. It's oh, can I do this? Like a marathon. Why would anyone want to run a marathon? Just to see if you can, So you're not supposed to go to sleep. It's supposed to be 12 to 12. But you're supposed to prep somehow, sleep early from 6 o'clock till midnight and then wake up and then stay up. We did not do that.
For 24 hours, so that makes no sense. Regardless of how much you sleep or prep before, you're still up for a whole day.
Okay, Khoila.
But it's easier to go through the night.
Thank you, Logic, for ruining my plan.
Listen, it just does not make sense to me. Just reading is supposed to be something you enjoy, and when you mess with your sleep, it doesn't make it enjoy.
It makes it enjoyable for me.
No, but you did enjoy it at the end. You realized you needed sleep.
Yes, sleep is so important.
It's a fun thought, but reality hits and you're just I'd rather sleep. But talking about...
I'll try again at another day.
Okay, let me tell you guys about my marathon experience today. So me and my sister are, doing our whole exercise an hour a day, right? And we're like, let's try different trails. So today Okay, we picked this trail. We had no idea how long it was. You guys, we started this trail. It ended up being a 9-mile trail. We were walking 9 miles. Now, let me tell you, the ending doesn't take you back where you started.
We have to do
I
15
walked
miles.
for 2 hours to find out my car isn't there. And I was like, what are we going to do? In order for us to walk back, it'd be another 2 hours. And this was already like, that's why, I'm like, can we please delay a little bit? Because I just got home around 8-ish. So from 5:30 till 8 o'clock, we were at this park.
That's so
I had,
At what point did you not realize that it wasn't going in a circle?
so we went pretty far. We're like, okay, we're going straight down. And then eventually it was going to like curve, we thought, but no, it never curved. And we're like, it's too late to walk back now because you're walking back another 5 miles. Might as well just go to the end to see what happens. Yeah, we just got to another park.
Wait, how'd you fix it? Did you get
I had
picked
to
up or
call
you
my
walked?
sister to pick us up because we're not walking another 2 hours back. Oh, look, I have a podcast recording. So I had my sister come get me and Nadine, and yeah, so it was so exhausting. I came here at 8 o'clock and had to like rush to get ready for the podcast. And I've been out like all day and I'm starving and hungry, but I did a 9-mile walk / run today. So I feel pretty good.
so fun.
It is pretty
9 long time. That's a long distance.
Yeah, we didn't expect it to be that long. So me and Nadine started, oh my god, 9 miles. And we saw the numbers go down. We're like, oh my god, this is a 9-mile track and it doesn't take you back to your car.
Listening to us discuss about kind of what we did in our week, it ties back to our topic today, which is, can you overshare, and at what point should you not share things with other people?
I think that's
so big.
so relevant to today because of all our social media accounts and how people are constantly updating like stories and timelines, and it's just sometimes it's so excessive.
Well, it's not just on social media too, even face to face when you're talking to someone. You ever realize when people are saying things and you're like, whoa, you
Yeah.
probably shouldn't be telling me?
Those are usually like when I have that thought, it's usually people that I'm not close with. I'm like, I can't believe she just shared all that with me. Yeah. And sometimes it's something personal. And I'm like, I'm kind of flattered because it's like, I guess you trusted me. But then I'm like, that's kind of weird because you don't know me.
Well, I guess because people think, I guess they put different importance to what they think. Like I might think that if I share something with someone, that means I feel that they're close with me, versus other people, they don't care. They'll just share it with anyone.
Also, it has a big impact is how people feel around you also. Like the whole face-to-face thing, I feel like people typically are, when they're more comfortable with you or when they sense you're more of a genuine person, they may feel the need to like overshare or overcompensate not knowing you by like sharing everything at once, and you're kind of just sitting there absorbing it, like you're not entirely sure what to do with that information.
I feel like when I overshare or overtalk in face-to-face situations, it's because I'm nervous. So I'll just keep going and going and going, or I need to like explain.
Yeah, no, I usually am very reserved and I don't share much about my life. Unless I'm really close to you, then you'll know everything. But for the most part, like I don't share much. I think it's a personality trait.
Yeah, I have to be really close with you to share actual things of like substance. If it's like basic things, it doesn't really matter.
But do you guys find it different when you're on this podcast and you're sharing things that you might have thought you weren't going to share before? Like what gives you the feeling of assurance when sharing this and you're putting it on the internet, right? You don't know who's going to end up listening.
Yeah, it is. It's weird.
I think that was one of our biggest adjustments when we decided to do the podcast. And Mariam and Inara know. Joel and I were an obstacle. But it really is a big deal to like go from, I felt for us, at least personally, I felt like I was going from 0 to 100. Because I'm not the person that typically even updates on my social media a lot. Like my Instagram posts are so distant, like between posts. And I rarely post on my story unless there's a party or something. So when we had the idea of like, yeah, let's podcast and personal experiences, I really had to kind of like talk myself into it. And it took a lot of practice. And even I feel like now I'm still a little iffy about things that I share or about wanting to, but I try to clear my intention, like, okay, this is gonna help someone, inshallah, or like this isn't as a big deal that I think it is, you know?
Why do you feel that tension though? Why do you feel that barrier, do you think?
Because I just don't like people knowing my personal business. Like, I just don't feel it necessary for people to know everything that goes on. Usually if I'm meeting someone new, or honestly, even if I'm just not that close to you and I've known you for a while, the conversation is either kind of superficial, or I'm more of the listening type. Like, I'd rather listen to somebody's stuff and like try to help them out rather than overshare my personal thing.
Generally, I think when people are speaking to another person, I start feeling uncomfortable or like a little twitch when I start sharing things that I think that other people will judge me for or will put me in a vulnerable position. That's when I kind of will reach the barrier in my brain that says, hey, maybe you shouldn't say that or you shouldn't share.
Yeah.
I remember we used to make fun of Mariam. We're like, Mariam doesn't have a filter. Because I remember we'd like go shopping, like we do certain things and we're like, hi, I would not say these things. And Mariam's like, has no issue with it. But subhanAllah, how everybody has like their different types of filters. And I find that so fascinating, kind of like what Khuwaila's saying. Like everybody's basically different as to what we're okay with sharing and what we think. Because I feel like sometimes I may overthink, oh, what did that person think? Or, oh my God, did I share this? Was that too much? Was I being insincere? Or, you know, does that lose its sincerity now that you shared? So many thoughts that go through your mind.
I think it's also one thing if like you're just sharing things like Mariam would overshare, but it was kind of like just unnecessary things. It's like, okay, you didn't have to say that.
It was necessary to me.
Versus like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people that are very like out there in the public will like share a lot of the things that they've done in the past, maybe that they're proud of or not that proud of. So like, it's like, should you be saying, like, let's say if I made a mistake and it's like I'm putting it out there to the world, like, should I be doing that?
Was it a public mistake or something
There's
that
an
in
instance.
private life?
No, like even more recently with what's her name, Jada Pickett Smith. And
Yeah, when she talked about cheating.
yeah, like she had an affair. You know what I mean? And it's like, is it necessary to like call yourself out, or not just an affair, but like any mistake that you've done in the past? Should
like
you be sharing?
essentially like airing out your dirty laundry.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I feel like whenever you commit a sin, you should hide it. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had like hid your sin, you should expose yourself and let the world know. I think you should keep that private unless you're like seeking help. But other than that, I don't think you need to explain to the world unless it was publicly done and you need to like justify your actions or explain as to like why you did a certain thing. But for the most part, I feel like if you committed a sin, that should be hidden and try to repent and not do that again. But I don't think you need to expose yourself like, oh, I did this and this is the type of person I am.
Well, I agree on the sin thing, but I kind of don't agree on why, if we had closure on that issue and you're now a changed person, if you are sharing it in order to help other people or like advise them and you're sharing your story so they feel more connected to you and that you're a more reliable source so they understand that you're understanding them. So it's like creating a connection between you two. So it's like, hey, maybe for example, you were a drug addict in the past, but you've overcome that. And now you're mentoring someone who is a drug addict now, or you see that they have that problem and you explain to them that I had that issue in the past, I overcome it and so can you.
But I think
it can be inspirational.
But I think there's a difference between trying to help someone by sharing your experiences or even like privately sharing with that person one-on-one versus like going out and partying or doing drugs or things that you're not supposed to be doing and kind of like reveling in it, you know, like posting it on Snapchat or sharing it with people. Those are the things that are like, okay, I mean, you're doing it and not everybody knows you're doing it. Is it necessary for you to shout it to the world, you know?
Those people, I'm sure, don't think what they're doing is wrong, or at least they're trying to prove a point where like, I don't care.
Yeah, I think it's more along the lines of trying to prove a point, not they don't think it's wrong. Because we see that a lot with kind of our youth in the Muslim community. You know, there's a lot of people that aren't doing things the way they should be doing or taking part in activities that we don't Islamically support, and they're kind of blasting it, you know? Like, how should we react when our younger siblings or our cousins or even us are watching these stories or liking these photos, what are we supposed to do also? Because you don't want to make it seem like you're encouraging the action, but also this person is constantly uploading media. So
I feel like a lot of youth who like post the things that they know, like especially Muslim youth who post these things, a lot of times they do know what they're doing is wrong. But one, they want to justify it to others and kind of make it a norm. And two, I feel like it's within their mind, like I feel guilty or I feel like I'm not being my true self. So I don't want to be a hypocrite. So I'm going to show the world who I really am. So I feel a lot of times people struggle with that. Like I feel guilty or I feel like I'm hiding myself or people perceive me a certain way when in reality, this is what I'm doing behind the scenes. So I feel like it's a way for them to be like, no, this is who I am and this is what I do. And I'm not going to lie to anybody about it anymore.
Or for them to get a sense of validation in some sort. Like, oh, I'm going to post this. And usually no one will respond saying anything negative. They usually will just ignore it and keep going on. And then people will reaffirm it. Like others that their actions, like they approve of those actions, they'll reaffirm it by saying, oh my God, that looks so fun. You look like this
I
is
mean,
so
not
cool.
necessarily. I'm sure like a lot of people also give them negative backlash, and then they'll also have people that'll like overcome with the positive. Like it's okay, you do you.
I don't think even if I have seen something wrong, I don't think I've ever sent a negative message.
Yeah, I mean that's us personally, but that's not
But
necessarily.
I think we reflect the general
Mhm.
public. Like I don't think people want to send a negative message, so they'll just ignore it and keep going and be like, okay,
Now
this
you have
person is doing
trolls. You have
something
people who are
wrong.
ready to call people out. You have like the haram police. I think there's a certain way you do it. I feel like if you notice something wrong, maybe if you know somebody that's close to that individual, maybe like talk to them privately to try to help somebody. But I wouldn't like put it on the comment section and blast somebody. It's just there's a way to go about doing it if you're actually trying to help that person.
yeah, I think especially Twitter is that platform that people use for controversy and to try to call each other out. But I want to go back to something Inara said. She was saying how people feel that by not posting this stuff, they're being hypocritical. I don't completely agree with that. Like I don't think not with what your statement. I don't agree with that mentality that if I'm not posting every single thing that I'm doing, that I'm being a hypocrite.
I mean, I can see that point though. Like if I'm acting one way with the people around me, but then what I'm gonna have this image that people think, oh, I'm another way. I'm gonna feel like I am being a hypocrite or two-faced.
No, maybe you don't have to exploit either side. Like you don't have to act extra religious in front of people and then on the weekend party extra hard.
Yeah, like you
But
don't have to post a picture of you praying and making dua, and then you're actually like clubbing and drinking and having a boyfriend. Like you don't those are two complete things. You could take a picture of yourself. You don't have to take a picture with you and your boyfriend. Like it's just
exactly. You don't have to. And then also another thing, I don't know about the whole, like, I guess, like, okay, fine, maybe it can be a little hypocritical, but I think people should naturally try to put their best image out there at all times anyway. Like you always want people to think the best of you also. So
But
why
that's
would
exactly it. There's like a trend of saying like, what is this best image? Like, why do I have to pretend to be this thing that everyone like idolizes when if one, it's not the truth, and two, this image is always changing and it's not supposed to be only one thing.
but it doesn't, nobody's saying that your perfect image has to be you volunteering every day and constantly praying and anything like that. But if like people have a good idea of who you are as a person or they think you're a good person, why do you have to deliberately go out of your way to be like, no, this is not who I am. I party and I do this and I do this. Like, what's the point of that? What do you get out of that?
Yeah, I
Like,
agree. But I'm just trying to see the other side of it. Like I like going back to what you said. If Allah is covering it up for you, why do you have to expose yourself?
yeah. And
I
we also
good.
I just think that maybe people aren't necessarily thinking about it when they post it. I think they're just longing for a connection. Like I think they're longing for a deep connection with people, and they think that a way to get it is through posting everything they do, through sharing everything about themselves, the good and the bad. They think that they're creating relationships with other people.
but I don't think that. So I mean, I know a ton of people turn to social media for validation and for support, and 100%, if you find it there, then good for you. But I don't feel like, I feel like those are the exceptions. Like, I don't think the majority seek help, or at least find help on social media.
I'm not saying help. I'm saying connection with others. I think it's like creating friendships, and they feel like these platforms or the people that follow them, and the people they follow, that this is like a friendship, even if they've never met in real life, that what their presence is online and what the other person's presence is online is a connection between them.
Right, so you end up having people who are like-minded follow each other and kind of like strengthen that bond. And I feel like that also makes it normalize your behavior, because then you're growing an audience that agrees with what you're doing and supports what you're doing. So then that fitra that originally was there where you felt guilty no longer is there, because then the people who are with you and following you and supporting this are validating it and justifying it. So like you forget that guilt and it becomes your norm.
My point wasn't going towards sharing negative things. I'm just saying oversharing in general, whether it's good or bad. I feel like people just want to share everything about themselves, and they're not necessarily thinking, hey, this is the bad part of me, hey, this is the good part of me. They're just thinking, this is me and I want to share it with my friends, period.
Yeah.
And because they're my friends, they're going to accept every part of me.
Yeah.
I think that's a mentality.
I mean, I've had a conversation before about like the whole fitra and whatnot, but I don't think we realized what a privilege it is to feel guilty. Like, feeling guilty in Islam is actually a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it's a reminder that yes, you're doing something wrong. You still consciously recognize that it's wrong, and you have the opportunity to fix it. But if you're committing sins, whether it be like daily sins or something really big, and you lose that feeling of guilt, then you know, like, that's the point where you should be nervous or you should be worried. You know, I remember learning that at even Universal, I think they used to teach us, like, you know, feeling guilty isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's to remind you that you know better, you can do better, and you can like turn back for repentance. And I had never thought about it that way, honestly.
I think also a big issue is trying to balance between the religious aspect and the cultural aspect, especially having us Muslim Americans growing up in this day and age with the society that we're living in. And it's trying to like figure out like, okay, this might be haram halal versus this might be aib or inappropriate versus like this is supposed to be okay, but our culture has made it not okay.
I just okay, so going past this whole I'm doing haram and posting it, what if you are a changed person and now you are going to tell your story to others?
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about that?
I think it depends on how like deep the story is or how big the mistake was.
Or what are people getting out of you sharing it?
Yeah. Like what's the effect?
Usually I'm gonna do like my counseling, what I've learned in my counseling class. Usually they say avoid sharing your personal story. So even if you have someone that you can relate to, let's say, you know, if my parents were divorced and I'm talking to my client who also is experiencing a separation between their parents, I should not be the one to share my personal experience with that individual. They're like they say like very little times should you ever share if you really feel like it will benefit the client, but for always make it about them, not about you. So even I know this is more like counseling and stuff like that, making sure that you focus on the client. But that's something that I'm taught, like you don't self-disclose unless you really feel like it will benefit that client.
But you feel like you've never heard someone's story and were inspired by their change?
So personally, Mariam, I like to hear life stories and I like to hear people's experiences, because I do learn from the lives other people have lived and how they've gotten out of situations. But I just feel like there's a very fine line between people just wanting to say their stories and people actually trying to educate others or to help others.
So let's say if it's a one-on-one conversation, do you think someone should share something that they have done in the past and that they've overcome if it may or may not help you? Like, is a one-on-one conversation acceptable?
one-on-one, and even like I meet with like a group of like 15 or 16 girls. Usually we try to do once a week, and we always have different discussions and we talk about different topics, and a lot of people share their experiences, and that's something where like I don't think there's a bad time to share that, because it's a group of like friends or girls that went to school together. So for us to just share between each other and and to explain to each other, this is what happened when I did it, this is what I learned from it, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I appreciate that.
Okay, so now let's take us, for example, right now. Us sharing something to strangers that we don't even know. Is that okay, acceptable?
Yeah.
Depends on what it is.
Our intention is also like when we share experiences, it's to help others. Like, our intention is to help others. Like, these are the experiences we've had. This is how we, I don't know, like, found our way through it. This is what we did. And we're always open to suggestions too. So
I do want to say, when somebody does open up to you and shares their personal information, whether it's a stranger that decides to or somebody that you really you know and are close to, always keep that private to yourself. Do not share somebody's sin, whatever you saw or whatever they shared with you. Like, keep that as a trust. And even if you notice somebody who's like sinning, hide that sin for them. So I feel like us as a people also need to hide other people's faults and sins, as well as if they share it with you, keep that as a trust between each other. Even though if a stranger shares something with you and the other person doesn't know it and they could benefit, I feel like there's no harm in like sharing that.
you could always just not say names or like change up the story where you get the main point across without who it is. But we even believe Islamically that you should hide your sins, because even the minor sins that you share are considered major, and that if you hide the sins of others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep your sins hidden. And inshallah forgiven in the
And what's scary is, let's say I flaunt a sin that I'm doing. How about other people that follow that sin, or other people that I've inspired to do that sin? And
But
normalize.
I don't think saying
So,
you
like, will that
did
be on
it.
me?
No, I don't think saying you did it and then learned from your mistake and are telling other people don't do it. I don't think that's flaunting your sin, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I think she's talking about like the whole social media and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What if it like makes it people who are doing it feel like, oh, everyone makes this mistake, it's okay. Like, I can keep doing it.
You can't control how other people perceive it.
Oh no, I'm not saying it's my fault if I say it in that, but like,
It goes back to your intention. Like, if I'm sharing something that I feel like another person would benefit, what's my intention? Like, what do I intend for the other person to get? Like, are they like, oh, like what is it that I'm trying to get across? Is it because I truly feel like this will benefit them and make a difference in their life? Or is it to like, oh, look at what I did, or to boast, or whatever the case may be?
it kind of reminds me of the show 13 Reasons Why, and like just in general, like suicide awareness and prevention, and how that show like took it too far, where it actually showed her committing suicide, and it just like I feel like the point of it was to bring awareness about suicide and try to prevent it, but then it also inspired some young kids to do something similar to that show.
It romanticized it in a way for them.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's a fine line. I think it's the way you represent it. So if I'm going, hey, don't do this. This screwed up my life. I can't believe X, Y, and Z happened because of what I did. Don't do it. And the other person's like, yeah, I'm going to do it now because they went through it. Like, I can't control that. But on a general level, going back to what Yunada said, if your intention is to educate, your intention is to share so that that person doesn't fall in the same ditch, then I mean, look at the Quran. The Quran is a bunch of stories that were people in the past that did wrong and that sin, so that we can learn and not do that. So clearly, people learn from stories.
I also want to add, there's always this conversation about how should the news share what is going out, what crimes are happening, due to the fear, like the school shootings. Like, should they share that stuff because it inspires other people who are like, yeah, I've been bullied, and so there's always that conversation. Is this inspiring other young students or kids to do this? So there's always this conversation. Do we share this information? Is it actually making it more public so people are like, yeah, I should do that too? And it's kind of increasing their thoughts and wanting to do it.
I don't feel like that's the same thing, honestly. Like them reporting what's happening in the world versus like I don't know, 13 Reasons Why, where they have school shooters or something, is a little different because when anything comes out of Hollywood, it always looks so much prettier than it actually is. Versus the news is like hard hitting statistics or like
But he,
of
honestly, though, he did. I think it was trending. Like I feel like, oh, look at what this person did, and then a couple of weeks later, another person. Like there was a time where it was happening so often.
the news. You're talking
Like,
about from watching the news.
School shootings. There were like so many school shootings.
yeah, there were so many school shootings. I think a lot of them rubbed off each other. Like, oh, I
Well,
want.
that could be like the chicken and the egg theory. Did this person already have the idea, or were they inspired by the news or by whatever they heard? You can't really control those things. I feel like
Oh, probably it's a mix of both, I'm sure.
yeah, but you can't over censor every single word that's said in fear that someone might take it negatively or in the way that you didn't intend.
But it is harming a lot of people in the end. So should it depend on what it is?
Then, but like, then what are like the news not? They're not
Yeah, I
expected
know.
to share anything.
I know. I'm like getting rid of the First Amendment.
But I think Maria made a good point, actually a really good point, when you said that if you are talking about personal experiences or something that you did wrong, you really, really have to emphasize on the fact that what you did was wrong and how negatively it impacted you, especially when you're talking to an impressionable crowd. You want to make sure that they completely understand that like you regret your decision or how you've grown from that decision or something along those lines.
If
And
you look at the drunk driving, I don't know if your guys' college made you guys go through this, but we all had to go to a seminar where they had a man speaking about how he was drunk driving and he ended up killing 3 of his friends in the car as a way to tell us like, hey, don't drink and drive because this is the consequences and the repercussions that had happened. And he actually ended up having to go to jail and serve jail time for manslaughter of his 3 friends. So hearing his story and hearing what he did, I hope he inspired people not to do that, to take precautions against doing that, because now they can see the consequences without doing the actions.
No, for sure. I'm totally for that. I think people sharing their story, it depends. So this is a crowd that's kind of asking for it, and he overcame it, and he's sharing it and motivating and inspiring others. There's nothing wrong with that.
But when you're on the internet and talking, you don't know if the person that's looking at you was looking for that type of advice. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think there's anything wrong either. Like, hey, like I've gone through this and let me advise you, let me tell you. I don't see anything wrong with it. Again, if the intention is I'm really here to help you and how I overcame this and I'm telling you the struggle as somebody who's gone through this path, I think that's seeking advice and that's wisdom speaking because you've gone through an experience. Like I would hope my parents would be like, hey, experiences, I'm telling you, get an education, make sure you do this, or
yeah, Mariam, that's I think the whole idea was put together is for him to share his experience. Like he's attending a seminar. It's not like he's also some random guy. He's actually there with the intention of telling students, this is what happened, this is why you shouldn't be doing it. But I think when it comes to also giving advice or speaking of experiences on one-on-one or like a small group of friends or something, I think it's also always important to preface it with, these are my experiences and everybody has like different experiences. Everybody comes out of things differently. Like you should also understand that just because you experience something one way, like it may not have been so bad for me and I'm able to overcome it, but for somebody else it'll be 10 times worse. So sure, you can learn from my experiences and take what I've said, but that doesn't by any means mean that you're going to experience it the same way or you'll be able to overcome it or so I think that's important.
So how about taking it to the other extreme? Some people who, if they are even asked about something, they just deny it or be like, no, that I never did that or that didn't happen. So like people who
they lie about it?
Yeah. So like, oh, did you ever experience something like this? And you're like, no. Like people who are just
if it was something that they had repented for and changed and it wasn't public, I think they have the right to be like, no, I've never done that. I think that's something between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they don't need to expose themselves to anybody. Even if you were straightforward, ask, hey, did you do this? And I think as long as you repented and you feel guilty, and also like I shouldn't feel the need to share that with you.
That's true. You actually changed my mind, because when you first said that, I was like, I don't like being lied to, but that is true. Like, if they repented and they don't want to share it with you, you can't force somebody to say something that they're not comfortable telling you.
I don't even think you should ask, personally.
Yeah.
Like, if some people are nosy and they'll like ask about things.
I'm always reminded of this because a lot of people always ask, like, do you ask a guy about his history? Do you try to ask, like, hey, have you done anything in the past that, and I don't know. What are your thoughts? How do you guys respond to that?
I think if it is going to affect the marriage, then you should. And I'm asking because of the fact that it might impact my decision going into the marriage. Then you have to say that's like fair game.
Like, he has a kid.
Yeah, like you're just gonna hide that from me? One day this person's gonna show up at the doorstep. No, I feel like that's fair game, but I feel like other things that have nothing to do with the marriage that aren't going to impact the future, then I think you don't really have to share it.
I don't think that you have to ask. Like, I don't know if you want to necessarily open up that can of worms, but I do think you should have the right to. Like, I don't think you should like necessarily have to, I guess, but I do think that you have the right to, and I do think that the guy coming to see the girl should definitely answer 100% honestly. Especially if it was something actually serious. Like, usually when people pose that question, one, they've either heard something or they know something, or like when they ask it and the guy feels like he has to answer it or he does answer it, it's usually because there was something a little more serious going on rather than just like, oh, hi.
People have different ideas of what's serious.
I mean, if you ask it, you do have the right to ask, because if it impacts how you're going into a marriage, you always have the right to ask anything you want. We're arguing over the other person's response. Like, do they have the right to say, I don't think they should lie, but also if they're like, don't ask me that question, then you kind of know the answer anyway.
Like, what if they were like a gambler? Sure, technically they're not anymore, but like, who knows? What if something happens and they fall into gambling in the future? I don't know.
But anyone could fall into gambling in the future.
Yeah.
So then
it's different.
Should they not disclose that?
No, it's different when you have a history of it, or like someone, maybe they used to party or drink occasionally because they were away from home. Like, you kind of, when you've done it, you're more likely to fall back into it than if you've never done it before.
It depends. I think if you've completely changed, I don't think you need to share that. I think if you're past that, I mean, it's up to you whether you want to be willing to open up about your past, but I feel like if you've moved on, and again, going back to what Mariam said, if it's not going to affect the marriage in the future, like if it's not going to affect it in any way, I think you can keep that private. Again, only if it won't affect the marriage. So if something comes out and your wife knows about it, and so be prepared.
Would a previous relationship like affect the future? I don't know.
Everybody's different, and I think as a woman you need to know and like let him know too. Like, if I know that you were in a serious relationship for some odd like whatever, how many years, that will affect me, and I don't want to be with somebody who has experience. Like,
I think the reason why I'm saying the answer the way that I am, that maybe you don't have to disclose everything, even though if I was on that side, I would want to know everything about my husband. I wanted him to disclose everything. I would want him to feel comfortable disclosing everything. But I feel like in general that when you are talking to someone, like for marriage purposes, I don't think that conversation is just going to remain between you two people. Unfortunately. Like, I feel like it will then become public, like someone will tell someone. Like, it won't just be like, hey, I'm telling you this only for marriage purposes.
Yeah.
I feel like now they're going to say everything.
Yeah.
And then also how it'd be really awkward if, let's say you asked and he had said, oh, I didn't have a relationship or something like that, and you run in the same circles with this other girl, or like you're constantly seeing, like, I just feel like there are some things, that you should be just completely honest and just hope that the other person doesn't spread anything.
Wouldn't ignorance be bliss in that situation?
Sometimes you can look like a fool, I feel like.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I just think
it's both.
that it's hard for me to say completely be open and honest and yeah, because you should, but on the other end, like you're not just exposing yourself to that one person. Like that one person has the opportunity to go and talk to how many people. And what if it doesn't work out with that one person? Then you're going to go talk to another person and you have to repeat the same things over again.
But hey, those sins, they'll have consequences. And I feel like that's sometimes something you have to face. Sometimes you have to face the reality of the situation. And that other
That's true.
can't handle something that they have done in the past. So let's say a potential is telling me something that they did. I have the right to be like, I'm sorry, like, even though it hurts to be like, no. But that's not something I could handle, and our marriage won't be successful for me knowing this. Again, I won't go out there and share that with everybody. But knowing myself, yeah, I know who I am. I know myself, and if I feel like I can't handle that, I'm gonna do him justice and myself justice and be like, I'm sorry, I can't have this relationship continue.
But what if, let's say if we were the ones that did it and we're the ones being asked that question.
When you're talking about situations like that, you're no longer talking about just one person. Like, this is not affecting you anymore. You have the responsibility and you have to take into consideration someone else. So if it is something that could potentially affect the marriage, and that goes for both sides. A lot of times we assume the guys just have something to hide or like they're not sharing, but even girls, like if there's something that you were doing or you are currently doing that can affect your marriage, that's 100% the other person's right to know.
Mm-hmm.
Especially before making a lifelong commitment like marriage.
Mm-hmm. Or some people don't want to share their health issues, and it could be so many things other than like a past relationship. Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are some things that I think across the board is fair game. Like everyone can agree you should discuss. And then those little things, I mean, they'll come out eventually and you'll know from there if the relationship is worth it or if you think you can overcome it. Like there's no way that before you make the decision you're gonna know anybody 100% anyways. Like there's just no way. So there may always be something that comes up and it's either important enough to end the relationship or it's not and you just continue.
So basically, in the end, it's always finding the balance between oversharing and undersharing.
Yes. And definitely knowing the audience that you're talking to. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to another episode of To Whom It May Concern. We hope you had just as much fun listening to us as we did recording these episodes. Don't forget that you can find us on the Libsyn and Podcast app, as well as our full-length episodes on YouTube. So make sure you're subscribing, liking, and sharing our content. If you don't already, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The Modern Skeps. And if you ever have any ideas you'd like us to discuss, please feel free to email us at modernskeptics@gmail.com. Sincerely, The Modern Skeptics. P.S. People don't know the half of it, but they don't need to know either.